I was following the eye, was following the pack, all swallowed in their coats, with scarves of red tied round their throats, to keep their little heads from falling in the snow. And I turned round and there you go, and Michael, you would fall and turn the white snow red as strawberries in the summertime.
Hello, and welcome to the Pathifist podcast. My name is Andi Bunny, also known as Wendigo Bunny, and I'm here with my two friends. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
I'm Jenny, also known as Hermia Mora.
Hi, I'm Kat, also known as Kat.
And we're here to discuss the first two episodes of The Path on Hulu, which just debuted 24 hours ago, roughly, on March 30th. And the first two episodes are What the Fire Brought and The Era of the Ladder. We're just going to go ahead and talk about both of them because they both debuted at the same time. And let's face it, who actually only watched the first episode and not the second? So,
Good.
so what did you guys think? We can just go ahead and sort of talk about it.
I really enjoyed it. Like you said, who could watch the first and not the second? As soon as I was watching it with you, of course, and as soon as the first one ended, it was just like, boop, gotta watch the second one. I couldn't hold off. It's very, very dramatic, and I could see myself getting addicted.
Dramatic is the word. The path of fascism.
What were your initial thoughts, Kat, when you first saw those, like the first 5 minutes of the show?
Well, I saw that I was gonna enjoy the two episodes.
Yeah.
That's what I saw. I mean, it's Hugh Dancy. What's there not to like?
Yeah, and he looking pretty good.
He's been working out since, yeah.
I don't know if it's the wardrobe or if he's been doing some kind of regimen, but he's looking good.
Yeah. You know, those pull-ups that he did in that second episode, though, I don't know how many takes they did, but he didn't seem to be struggling at all with those. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so we've got an all-star cast here, really. We've got Aaron Paul, from Breaking Bad, and, I've read some interviews with him where he really wasn't even considering going back to television before he was offered this role, and, when he read the script and talked to Jessica Goldberg, he has actually a background, he's the son of a Southern Baptist minister, so he's got kind of a religious background. Yeah, he talked about he has memorized, passages of the Bible. He's read the Bible through several times. Now he's kind of describes himself almost a little bit as agnostic, but still spiritual. Like I don't know necessarily what is the truth, and I don't think that we'll ever know, which I think a lot of people can relate to. So it really spoke to him because he had a lot of experience with being in different churches, and there are a lot of echoes of, especially, I think, some of the fundamentalist aspects. Jenny, you think you and I both have that background too, so there's a little of that, religious. Obviously, this is a very spiritual and religious show, so yeah.
Yeah, many moments throughout these two episodes where I felt like I was back in the retreats and the lock-ins, all these things that I had to be part of when I was growing up, and some of the things that the phrasing, I know this is not Christianity. It's a completely new religion that Jessica Goldberg came up with, but it's really, it strikes the same chords, that I'm very familiar with. Mm-hmm. Fundamentalism.
Yeah, she mentioned a couple of interesting things too, that when they were developing, her and Jason Katims were developing the religion, she was actually going through a couple of major experiences in her life. Her father had just died, and she divorced her husband. And so she was kind of in this wasteland bit of desperation in her own life, this very dark period. So Jason Katims was kind of asking her a lot of very tough questions as she was developing this about what would make you want to be in this cult, and what would draw you into this. So those were a lot of elements I think that she thought of, and I think they also really wanted to be careful for legal reasons, obviously, not to make it too close to Scientology.
The way.
Yeah, and there are some, I think, echoes that we can recognize of Scientology in this.
Yeah, and also the Way International. I did see some comments on Tumblr about someone who actually was a part of the Way International and how this person felt like they were watching. Oh yeah, I know about that. I know about that.
That was the original name of the working title of the show, and they actually had to change it.
Because there was another show. Yeah.
I think they actually had to change it because the religious group, The Way International, challenged them about it. That was what I had read.
Really? I thought they changed it because there was another show named The Way.
That could be too. But yeah. Interesting.
I'm not sure though.
So I kind of wanted to mention briefly something else that I was reading about. I don't know if you guys know about this religion called Earhart Seminars Training. It's known as EST. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It was one of the things that Jessica used that was kind of, I think, an inspiration for talking about developing the Meyerist movement. It basically was founded in 1971 in San Francisco. It dissolved in 1984, but essentially it was founded by Werner Erhard, and their premise, their mission statement was to transform one's ability to experience living, so that the situations one had been trying to change or had been putting up with clear up just in the process of life itself. It was a 2-weekend, 60-hour seminar. And they talked about freeing oneself from the past. They use a form of Socratic interrogation, relying on the power of the shared cathartic experience to press people beyond their normal point of view and see beyond their own experiences and past that in order to grow and develop. So
sounds like the realignment session that poor Eddie Lane has to experience.
Basically like a group therapy.
One of the other things that I read was that they say in this EST, much of human misery is a function of broken agreements, not keeping your word, or someone else not keeping theirs. So that really resonated with me as being one of the major tenets of Meyerism. Unburdening, being transparent, which is very good, but yeah.
I think if people are truly really broken by this world, or something has happened horribly to them, I think it's better for them to join these movements or just connect with people better than waste their money on psychiatrists. Basically.
Yeah. Scientology, for example, is very against psychiatry. They're constantly talking about how psychiatry.
Well, obviously. The reasons are obvious.
Yeah, right. I did find one thing I found very interesting about Michelle Monaghan's character, Sarah. She apparently is some kind of counselor, or maybe a psychologist. She has that role, and she talks about she's sort of in charge of the rehab program. She wants to do the rehab with this young guy who's on drugs,
Right.
And I'm interested in seeing how she does that. I saw a little bit of a clip. Apparently, she's put in charge of poor, what is her name? Oh, Miranda Frag. I think she's in charge of Miranda Frag's realignment, which sounds horrifying.
That seems like a conflict of interest. I don't know.
But I am interested in this Richard guy, because he's doing the whole you two sit down you in front of me and I'm going to be your middle person.
Yeah.
And then when it doesn't work, he just berates and emotionally abuses the hell out of Eddie while he's in that room, and that's how they do, and that's really interesting to me. It's very it very much reminds me of this story I heard about a woman who was part of a Christian cult, a very, very fundamentalist conservative Christian cult, and they came and told her, "We know that you've been committing emotional adultery. Basically, we know you've been having lustful thoughts about a married man." And they wouldn't tell her who. And they wouldn't tell her who her accuser was. And she had no idea. She had no idea where they were coming from with this, but they locked her in a shed and they just treated her terribly for a very long period of time.
What the
But basically, in this show, they keep people locked up until, like Eddie says, I'm going to just start naming names. And he does. He names Miranda Frank, even though she's completely innocent.
Right. Wow. Do you remember what was the name of the group? Or
I wish I could remember.
That's all right.
Yeah,
It's interesting. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, it was basically, I believe, a Christian cult.
That's terrifying. How would they know what she was thinking?
Well, because, I mean, the same thing. One of the same things happened to my sister. My sister Danielle. She's part of a charismatic church, and a child, apparently, she didn't know this at the time, but a child said that God had told her she was a witch.
Oh,
My sister Danielle was a witch. And they
Wow.
they basically shunned her and approached her and said, "We know that you're a witch, that you're involved in witchcraft." Well, who says? They wouldn't tell her. And it was just...
That's horrifying.
Yeah, they treated her very badly. The pastor had to step in and say, "You can't do this. You can't just tell someone that they're a witch." So, I mean, luckily the pastor wasn't a crazy person, but this group that she was a part of was insane.
Yeah, it's when you have a good idea and you take it to an extreme, it becomes bad.
Absolutely. Yep. Any religion, you have even religions that are based on some really positive tenets.
Yes.
Can be taken to an extreme and be corrupted. Cal has pretty much everyone wrapped around his finger.
Yes, definitely.
He's kind of become the leader, and we found out at the end.
And that's what he wants. I mean, when he talks with that guy in the van, when he says, "What if the whole world was living as we did?"
World peace.
Yeah, world peace. Did you guys ever watch the movie Equilibrium?
Oh yes, yeah.
I immediately, as he said that sentence, I immediately thought of that movie.
Yeah.
And I can totally see him just making a world as something like that.
Yeah.
World peace, quote unquote.
You guys ever watch Firefly, Serenity?
Yes.
Yeah, Serenity. I'm going to show you a world without sin. A world without sin being awful. You don't want to live in a world without sin.
Fascism.
Yes. But I really like the character of Cal. I mean, so far, there's this ominous feeling, like you think, okay, something's gonna happen to show how awful this guy is. But so far, I really feel like I can relate to him on a lot of different things. The worst thing he's done is beat the crap out of a facilitator of child rape, and I can't hate him for that, certainly. But he's just mesmerizing. Every time he's on screen, I'm very interested in what he's up to. You know, what's going on in his head. He's easily the most interesting character, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think he's a very complicated character as well, because he's not, I think they're trying to hint, perhaps, with the tapes in the car, that he might have some sociopathic tendencies. But I think it's actually a lot worse. I think it's a lot worse or different than that. There's some, I think that we talked about offline, Jenny, there's a lot of energy behind the beating up of Mary's father in the trailer. There's too much passion behind that for that to simply be about beating up her father and rectifying that situation. And there, yes,
Okay,
go ahead.
carry on. I'll talk after.
Well, I also think that there's definitely a connection there where he is projecting on her, like you said, Jenny, a little bit of perhaps his experiences. He talks to, when he's talking to Sarah's dad in the van when the kids are proselytizing, and he talks about how, you know, my dad had me out there when I was 5 and they called Child Protective Services, you know.
I noticed that when he says, he's basically complaining about, like, oh, my dad did this, and the man he's with, who is Sarah's father, right?
Yes, Sarah's father, yes.
Says, your dad was a good man. And
Right.
Cal doesn't say, yeah, he was. He just goes, and then complains some more about how he was spit on and how they had, you know, it's clear that he does not.
Yeah, when he asks it, you know, if you talk to your mother, he doesn't even acknowledge that question, which
he's just like, I'm going to go on with how much I hated.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kat, with what you wanted to say. I wanted to hear it.
Well, I think what he meant when he said that he was spit on. I mean, just look what's happening to his kid now when kids hear that they're in a cult. I mean, keep your Kool-Aid away from me, you freak. I mean, imagine back then what people thought of the movement or a cult. You know, I mean, they were seen as freaks.
Oh yeah.
And maybe there's really nothing behind him and his dad. And I was trying to say, what makes you think that Mary is the only one? Like, maybe he did this to other people as a way of manipulation, you know, like something like Hannibal did. For example, like he beats his dad, her dad, in front of her, and then manipulates her immediately, as of like she's bound to him, like she owes something to him. Do you understand?
Yeah, that's an interesting.
Yeah.
So maybe he did this before to keep people in the movement. So basically, this is the way that I'm gonna help you,
Right.
and
Getting people to be indebted to him.
Yes.
It is a great technique for trying to control people. Yeah. Yeah.
There is a moment though when he's talking to her and she tells him, my father did this to me, and his response to her is, if you keep working on the ladder and you immerse yourself completely in this movement the way I have, all the horrible things that were done to you will disappear. And she just says, no, they won't. And the look on his face isn't frustration that she doesn't agree with him. It's not, you know, like pity. It's just, oh, you know, like this kind of emotional devastation. Like, perhaps when he told her that, he was really talking to himself. Like, if I keep going at this and I be the best Meyerist I can be, everything that was in my past will disappear, but it won't. It won't.
Maybe he killed his dad.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're taking it that far, maybe he killed his dad.
It's possible. We don't know.
It is possible.
He
Yeah.
said something interesting. He said something really, I thought that was kind of interesting in the when he was visiting the fella in the mansion that's donating the money and his son is on drugs. When he was talking about art and he recognized the art, he said, I used art to deepen my understanding of the human condition and of suffering, which I thought was another sort of, why do you feel as though you need to, do you not know about this? Do you not know about? So I'm kind of curious to see if maybe because it does seem like he has some grief and sadness and stuff in his past, maybe some trauma, perhaps that he has shut his emotions off or closed himself off to that and is having to,
He's a sociopath.
is having to kind of figure out how to relate
because
to people.
he outright said that he used art to learn the emotions that he didn't understand before. And how can you not understand basic human emotions? I mean, you have to be a fucking sociopath.
Well, and
And the car, and in the car when he was driving there, he was listening to a tape how to appeal that. Yeah, I mean, that was scary, by the way.
it's a common result of severe trauma to distance yourself or withdraw so much that you completely disconnect from your own emotions. So that could be what's going on. It's just a theory, but yeah, it's interesting.
There is neurological psychopathy, I guess, but the DSM would call it antisocial personality disorder. But that can be neurological. It's just you're born that way and you have a disconnect and there's nothing you could do about it. You could just try to get through your life as best you can. But there is something that some people have called meta psychopathy, which is when someone has had a terribly traumatic experience or it has in some way been damaged psychologically. They take on the traits of a psychopath. They shield themselves,
right?
In the way that you're talking about, they take on.
It's like extreme compartmentalization.
Exactly, and so they're not really a neurological psychopath. They simply have a lot of the symptoms of psychopath.
So they're still capable of empathy. They're still capable, because clearly he is capable of empathy. You can see it.
It's accessible.
I think there's no empathy there. I think that he only in his life cares about this movement and nothing else. Nothing else.
That could be. I think we've yet to really see the full picture, but yeah, that's.
And I think he really only knows. I mean, since he has been taken to this movement since he was 5 years old, I think that this movement is the only thing that he knows about and that he truly loves. And he is taking it too far already.
I think it's the only thing keeping him together completely.
Oh yeah, the control. Yes.
Yeah.
The control, the total control of these people. And he wants to rule the world. I mean,
yeah,
clearly.
He's definitely got that power-hungry vibe.
Yeah, but I feel like it's less about ego and power and more about he legitimately thinks that he knows best. He legitimately thinks that if he could make everyone Meyerist, everyone would actually be happy. It's not like he wants to just stomp on ants. He wants the whole world to be happy and have world peace, and he's the one who knows how to do it, so just shut up and listen to him, So it's,
I think he would walk over dead bodies to
yeah I think he has an internal moral consistency.
He may think that people would be happy, but hell, if somebody dared to not agree with him,
That's
he
right.
would be burned at the stake. I mean,
Yeah.
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 that's not a happy society.
When he's in that last scene when he's talking to the rich guy, you can see that in his eyes.
Yes.
There's a couple of other Cal scenes while we're talking about Cal that I think are very revealing of his duality. One of them, Jenny, we were talking about that was early in episode 1, which was Eddie's testimony to the group.
Oh, yes.
Why don't you talk about that? Because that was really, I thought, very revealing.
I was upset.
What were you upset about with that?
I was upset because, I mean, Eddie was so emotional and he was crying, and
Yes.
and he just came and says, "Oh, this is my favorite part." And I was like, "What the
Oh yeah,
fuck,
he ran
man?
through the
I know,
street
it's
wanting
so-
to
What the
die.
hell?"
I
And
love
he's
that part.
And he's like, "What did you find, Eddie? What did you find, Eddie? Say it, say it."
Absolutely.
And you can
even
see
before-
the anger in his eyes, and his face is just like, I mean, these people
the
are watching you, and they want, just get to the point. I mean, nobody gives a shit. No,
Even
really.
Yeah, you're right. Even before that scene started, he's trying to talk Eddie into telling the story. And Eddie doesn't really want to. He's like, I'm tired of telling that story. And he says, but I love that story. It always gets me pumped up. Like the story that is so tragic for you. You found your brother hanging from an extension cord. It's horrible.
What a
It gets
great
me pumped up.
story. Mm.
Yeah, and it just shows that he is completely emotionally inappropriate. And later on, when Eddie is telling the story, he gets to the part where it's sad, and he's very just telling this sad story, and it shows Cal, and he's got this expression on his face that is, you don't realize it at the time, but later you find it is an exact replica of the "now express a sea of empathy" face that the tape recorder was telling him. It's the same. He's doing the same thing with his eyebrows, his eyes, going, "Oh, I am expressing empathy right now."
Can't
But
you see that? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And as soon as Eddie is not getting to the point, instead he's just kind of crying and wallowing in this horrible memory, instead of showing these new recruits, everything's great now. I'm a Meyerist now. Everything in my life is wonderful. Instead, he's crying. He's still in horrible pain. Cal looks around. He's glancing around at the people, and he has this look on his face like, oh, God damn it. Eddie, get back on track.
Can't you get anything right?
Yeah, you got to advertise the movement. I don't care if you're still in pain over your brother.
Exactly. This is what I was talking about. He doesn't care about anyone else. He just cares about his movement and how successful it is.
And meanwhile, poor Eddie is still raw from what happened in Peru. That's why this is so emotional for him, is because it's just been, the Band-Aid was just torn off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he's breaking down, and really Cal is using him. I mean, he's really using him in that moment, and
that's what the story is for in his mind. It's not about Eddie needs to have catharsis. He needs to feel better by having group therapy or something. It's about tell how broken you were, and then tell how the latter saved your life.
What did you find?
Yeah, he's grilling him. It's just so...
Okay, so you ran 6 miles across town, you went to a bookstore, blah, 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 you wanted to die, blah, blah, blah. Right.
Yeah. Very telling scene.
Mm-hmm.
and the whole time, Eddie is looking at Cal like, fuck you, man. Just...
Mm-hmm. I'm really interested to see more about the relationship between Cal and Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
One-on-one, their relationship, not necessarily involving Sarah, but what their relationship is like, because then later, Well, earlier when Sarah meets with Cal, he says something to her like, "I'm going to be stalking you guys. We're going to hang out like we were before, the three of us, up all night trying to save the world." And then later, when he confronts Eddie about cheating on Sarah, he's like, "I love you like a brother, ma'am." So I don't know. I'm just kind of interested in seeing what their dynamic is together when they're alone.
Oh, it's gonna be Clash of the Titans.
Hmm.
Especially because of Sarah. And I mean, Sarah is gonna be a tool in their in Cal's game. I can already see
Of
that.
course.
Mm-hmm.
I can already see that. And that is already happening. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if they're gonna show in the next episodes Eddie being in that cell room or whatever it is. But I can already see what he's gonna do to Eddie's wife.
Yeah, yeah.
And she's already fragile. I mean, she already thinks that her husband is cheating on her. I mean, it's a GG game.
I'm starting to get hints that Sarah might have a penchant for cruelty herself because, first of all, she knows what's going to happen to Eddie if he goes in that room, and she wants him to. For 2 weeks being abused and basically having his psyche broken down, and she's okay with that. Not okay with that, she wants it. And she talks about basically she's in charge of the rehab program. So when, drug addicts come in, she's the one who gets to break them down. And I think she might be the one who, if the trailers are any indication, she might be the one who gets to work with poor Miranda Frank. So I think she's definitely she might be sort of like Richard is, someone who goes into those rooms and just emotionally abuses someone until they break it.
Someone that's slightly sadist.
I think she is so far she's trying to project this image of I am such a good and decent person, but
yeah, no mistakes. Yeah,
exactly.
Oh, I loved that line so much.
Moment.
I had no
That
mistakes.
was a great moment.
Everyone makes mistakes. I don't. She's kind of like Cal in a way,
Yeah, they would be a perfect couple.
They really would.
Yeah, and when she said I chose you when they were fighting
Yes.
and he said like, what's that supposed to mean, you chose me over Cal? And I mean she did mean that.
Yes.
And you can see that in the next scenes, the way she looks at Cal when he's giving the speech. I
Yes.
mean, she clearly made a mistake.
She wants Cal. She
Yes.
has always wanted Cal.
Yes.
But when she tries to explain herself, like Eddie's grilling her, why did you choose me? Why did you choose me? She says, because you were not like the rest of my family. My family is all the same. We're all, these religious people who are pure and perfect, just like Cal is this, youth pastor type.
Mm-hmm.
And you came along and you were different. And I wanted something different. I wanted a window through which to see the world. And so, yeah, she'd probably be better off with Cal for what she's, her ambitions and his ambitions are very compatible. But she still picked Eddie because she's kind of got that. I need someone different in my life who isn't.
Yeah, Eddie is kind of a rebel.
He was a bad boy.
I mean, he's not a bad boy, but for them he is.
He's a bad boy to the Meyerists.
Compared to them.
Yes. Standards, he's actually decent.
Yeah. And I mean, when she said that, she kind of cooled down and actually was surprised when next morning Eddie told her that he was gonna do the 14 days.
Yeah.
Yes.
But obviously, I mean, she thought that he was cheating on her, which basically any human being would be thinking that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not defending her, but if my husband was 2 weeks off and then he came and he was distant and then I saw him going to a motel,
Yeah.
I mean, what
Yeah.
else would you? I mean, and you
Yeah.
saw a woman opening the door. What? I mean,
Yeah.
there is no other assumption. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're starting to hint that anybody who tries to leave the movement is followed around by creepy individuals who try to stop you,
Or
you know.
gets killed.
Yeah, or they get killed. And this woman that
Lisa.
Eddie is talking to, she's trying to go see her grandparents, and they're waiting for her. You know, it's very creepy. And so I think Eddie kind of knows, if I reveal that I might be a denier or on the verge of being a denier, I'm going to be
executed.
Yeah, either that or emotionally beaten down until I start naming names left and right.
I have a really off-the-wall thought I wanted to run by you guys, and this is really out of left field, and it might be completely wrong, but hey. So, you know how Eddie's brother was found hanging by an extension cord, blah, blah, blah. So, also noticed that Jason Kemp, Allison's husband, when Sarah's mom looked him up, when Eddie went in to ask her, can you look this guy up? He used to be one of us, blah, blah, blah. She's like, oh, it's horrible. He killed himself. And he's like, how? And we never get to find out why. But I was just like, wait a minute, what? So I don't know. Conspiracy, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a little far-fetched, and hard to say yet, but.
Yeah, because as far as we know,
Because why was it Eddie's brother that led him to go see Dr. Myers in the dream? I don't know if there's a connection there. It could just be coincidental, but
yeah, I mean,
that would be one hell of a plot twist.
we don't know if is it Johnny, his brother, was involved in the Meyerist movement, because all we know, according to, we don't know that.
I don't know that yet. I'm speculating.
According to Eddie, after he didn't even discover Meyerism until after his brother killed himself, and then he found it in a bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
I think Eddie would know if his brother was involved, and if that's a plot twist, that's a bad plot twist. Because how could you not know that your brother was in this movement?
Well, he might not be telling the entire story yet.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to say that it would be a bad plot twist, and
with the existing facts, yes.
Yeah.
It's just something I thought of that I wondered about. But
it is coincidental that suicide appears to be a running theme.
But it could be simply coincidence, yeah.
It might play, later.
I was kind of disappointed that they already in the first episodes let us know what was in the room. I was like, I was really kind of surprised and semi-disappointed.
You wanted them to kind of hold off a little bit longer on that? Yeah. Talking about Cal is revealed to actually be in that hospital room with Dr. Meyer, who is unconscious. And I like that little scene to end on, because the way Cal is talking to Dr. Meyer, he's talking to him like he's conscious. He's talking to him like he can hear. And he has this very childish demeanor, and he's talking to him like he's his dad. Like, oh, I was on TV, and
what if he is his dad?
Yeah, you would have been so proud, and it's almost like he's not.
Yeah, but what if Steve is his dad?
Well, here is what I was wondering as well. What if, again, this is off the wall because I have a vivid imagination, what if Stephen Meyer actually abused him in some capacity when he was a child, and he has done something to put Stephen Meyer in this comatose condition, And this is his way of taking over the movement because he really does believe in it and kind of getting his revenge um, on him for that. And it would kind of explain the rage behind him going ape nuts over Mary's father. Maybe that was why we saw in one of the trailers him yelling at his mother, Kathleen Turner, "Why didn't you protect me?" And he, so I don't know if that's actually true, but it was one of the things that I was kind of curious about. But
Yeah, it's also possible that he's got a lot of resentment toward his biological father, making him go hand out flyers when he's 5, get spit on. And Dr. Meyer was someone who was actually
kind
a better father.
Yeah, they're there for him. Yeah.
Yeah, but the way
Because
he talks to him,
yeah,
conscious,
that is the first time that you actually see him with real emotions.
yeah, he seems to have real affection for Dr. Meyer. And also he's talking to him like he is conscious, like he can hear him. And that kind of makes me wonder if he's not a little delusional.
Oh, yeah. I think that scene screams delusional.
Yeah. And there's this great part where he's trying to convince Sarah that Dr. Meyer, Dr. Meyer said this to me. And he says, he literally told me that, Sarah.
And it sounds
He
like something
literally
a kid
told me
says.
that.
Yeah, it sounds like
Yeah,
something a
yeah.
kid says to their parent to try to convince them something's real, the way he says it.
Yeah. He literally said this thing to me. And he says, "You know me, Sarah." And Sarah's like, "Yes, I do know you, Cal." And he's like, "Whoa,
Between the lines, and I know that you're being real sketchy, so yeah.
Yeah. And apparently she knows something about him that we have not seen yet.
Yeah.
She does come to Tim and tell him that, when you used to sneak into my bed at night, your hands were like fire, and I thought this man could never love a person.
He needs too much.
Yeah.
He needs too much.
He needs all the time.
Which is interesting.
So, how about that intro animation, huh?
Oh God.
The little introduction.
I really liked the art and the animation in that. That's pretty cool.
Apparently, Acme Filmworks.
Oh,
do that.
Nice.
Yeah. And it was meant to convey kind of a trippy, like a ayahuasca trip or something like that, kind of insanity and revelation.
Speaking of that, we see that a lot when Eddie is locked up in that.
Oh yes. I really like that sequence where he starts banging on the wall and it breaks. The wall kind of looks like it's breaking, and you see Miranda Frank dancing. I thought that was really cool.
That was a really neat 360 shot that they did with that. Yeah, I think there were mixed reactions of it, but I think it really conveyed well, like that hallucinogenic state that he was in, and how mentally unraveled he became, and
especially at the end when he was
screaming.
Yeah.
Like in the fetal position, just screaming. And yeah, it shows basically what that realignment program is all about, that they make you go through your whole life story piece by piece by piece and just spill everything out to deconstruct everything.
It really shows in the end when he was just in that fetal position in the end how broken he was and how abused he was.
Yeah, it's a really abusive program that I can understand why people would just shut up and try to do what they're supposed to do, because God help them if they end up in that room,
Exactly. I mean, it's a false advertisement of happiness.
It's not unlike the concept of sin and hell and an incentive to stay moral, and the punishment. So, yeah, just
Except this
something
is
that's more visceral and immediate.
It's
Yes.
more masked. It's more masked.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but it's not the same thing.
Hmm.
I don't think that the Meyerists would say this is a punishment. I think that they would say this will help you.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is worse.
Yes.
Which is worse. If you're having a punishment, you would know it's a punishment, but this you're delusional
Yeah.
That's
all around.
this may only be my experience, but when I was being disciplined, growing up in the churches that I grew up in, it was clearly abusive, but it was sold or represented as this is for your benefit. This is not
Oh.
punishment. This is for you to be a better person, for you to get better. This is not a punishment. This is not a hatred. This is because we are doing the right thing for you.
Yeah, it's classical. This will hurt me more than you. I mean, it's abuse.
Mhm.
It's abuse, and in the end, I mean, you are delusional that
And it
it
makes the
actually
person
helps you.
question. It makes the person question themselves.
They're not
Yes.
allowed to even feel like
Yeah, it
You know,
invalidates your
like they've been
experience and your feelings.
Yes.
victimized. Yeah.
Yeah. And
You-
in the end, what's even worse, you actually accept that treatment, quote unquote, as a
And-
way of yes.
Mhm. This is love. I'm being loved right now.
Precisely, yes. Very, very classical conditioning, definitely, to get control over someone. I had a couple of little just like trivia things I wanted to mention, and I don't know if it's a good time to bring them up, but
Sure.
this was filmed at a spiritual retreat run by nuns in Nyack, which was just that's why it looks like such an idyllic setting, and it's just so beautiful. The whole time I was watching it, I grew up in the Finger Lakes region of like Western New York, and it really reminded me of home, and it's just so beautiful, the setting, and easy to see why anyone going there would just want to stay and never leave. I mean, if you just look at it on the outside, the external, and even looking at their yoga and their meditation exercises and how loving and accepting everyone is, and it seems very appealing, And look at Cal, I mean, and his speeches to people, his inspirational.
His speeches are really, oh my God.
And you remember Aaron Paul in the panel that they did, talking about how Hugh never uses asides.
He has
he
long,
memorizes entire sermons and just gets up there and delivers them. And I know he was raised by intellectuals in England, so I'm kind of guessing probably not a lot of experiences with religion.
Good for him.
His dad is a Nobel Peace Prize winning philosopher. I highly doubt that he's a fundamentalist, but just gonna say probably not. Moral particularism doesn't really mesh with fundamentalist Christianity. But hot damn, does he know what a fundamentalist youth pastor sounds like? Because I've been to so many of these retreats, been to so many of these lock-ins, and the way they talk and the phrases they use and the facial expressions and the way, I feel like he really channels that perfectly well, and just goes to show you he must be doing some research.
I love how he uses the word prisoners when he for normal everyday person. I'm guessing he meant that when he said prisoners and shadows of reality.
The ignorant systemites.
Yeah. I mean, those are kind of points that will appeal to anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, you see how clearly when he was talking at that talk show how he took that interviewer immediate, like she was sign me up. I mean, and when he said, kill the man rather than let him destroy their reality. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's so it's true. It's true.
Hmm.
It's what people do.
It was kind of a little bit like he was talking about Plato's cave, and it's a little bit like the Matrix when you when
Yeah.
you look at a reality that has been presented to you your entire life, and then you are able to, in some way or another, um, look past that and see what else there is. Uh, then you go back and you tell people, what would the reaction of those people be? Would they try to kill you so that they would not could because people tend to want to cling to the familiar because it's so comfortable, or
Hmm.
would they accept it? No, most
No.
people would probably want to stone him to death. Most people would not want to. They want to stay in the
Well,
Matrix.
most people will laugh at you
Yeah,
and tell you that you are a conspiracy theorist,
precisely.
Yeah.
basically. I mean, but I love it. I love when he was talking about shadows of reality. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really something that we face today.
And it is something that is brought up in Christianity as well. The Bible verse from Corinthians that talks about now we see through a glass darkly.
Yeah,
Basically, what you think you are seeing is not reality. It's you're looking in a cloudy mirror or a cloudy window, and let me show you the truth. I think many religions do this.
Well, that's how you take people to follow you.
hmm
Mhm. Tell them that
Tell them
every
the truth. Tell them
yeah,
what's real, what's not. It's classical.
yeah, and following up with if people disagree with you
Oh,
or try to confront you on the logical issues with what you believe, you're a martyr. They're trying to stone you. It's like so it makes people puts people on the defense so that if anybody tries to reason with them, uh, oh, you just want to stone me. You just want to,
yeah.
hate me because I see the truth, and that
and
that
then it becomes the opposite.
hmm
mm-hmm.
And then
Exactly.
it becomes the opposite. I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Talked about this pseudo-Christian cult called 12 Tribes that did something similar to what we saw the Meyerists do at the beginning of episode 1, which is they actually set up this was a while ago, but they set up Red Cross tents at different rock concerts to try to get like the kids that were coming off of really bad LSD highs to
Oh,
treat them, and then once they had them in the tents, they would recruit them into their cult,
yeah,
which I thought
yeah,
was
Oh,
kind of another interesting way that they similar to what the Meyerists did at the beginning with
yeah,
the tornado victims.
yeah. And it gains this suspicious because when the tornado hits in
Mhm.
Hampshire, they were just right there. They got right in there before FEMA did. And of course, his boss is like, no one got there before FEMA did. You just shut up about it.
Yeah,
It's like, okay, fine. FEMA's awesome.
we don't talk about that. Yeah.
We don't talk about FEMA. Anyway, one thing I thought was really strange, they're very non-evangelical,
hmm
um, because most of these groups, movements, cults, religions, really want to go out there and convert people, and they are going out and they're passing out flyers. That's something, but they don't associate with the ignorant systemites. And this boy says, this girl needs my help, and instead of saying, yeah, get in there, help her, and then make her one of us, they're just like, no, you should just stay with your own and focus on
it's
your
because they're scared that they will get stoned.
right, right. But I think Cal is a super evangelist. He wants to go out and get everyone. He wants to convert the whole world.
He's looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah,
Brainwashing.
yeah. He wants
global
make a world without sin.
And I
Oh,
think he
yeah.
believes so ardently in this system that he's like, if we have this great thing, why wouldn't we tell people about it? Why wouldn't we want to share it with the
I mean,
world?
if it
People are
works
suffering.
well for us, why wouldn't it work for the rest of the world?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And he's
And
been in the movement for so long, and that he's a little naive about people's reactions. And he's also so confident in his ability because he gets such great reactions from people.
Yeah, he has reason to be confident in his abilities, though, because look at how
Yeah.
people react to him.
Exactly.
yeah, I think he's not naive of the people's reactions. I think that he thinks that he has the ability to convert the whole world.
Yeah, and he might.
And
he
he actually might. You know?
He's pretty impressive. That's
And we've got
just
that line that we see in one of the trailers where he's like, I can walk into the street and make anyone believe.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
And he's got a
yeah,
banana
Sounds like